Welcome back. We're having a very frank, honest conversation about the immigration crisis in this country. It's not a fun, silly, wacky, colorful conversation. It's actually, if we're being honest, if we're being completely transparent about what's going on down there, this is pretty dark, disturbing stuff. Some of the things happening at our border right now, were you to see a video of it, you would call it a snuff film. I mean, there are some vile, disgusting things. If you're a humanitarian, if you're somebody that advocates for human rights and cares about the suffering of marginalized people, I don't know how you could be for these unsecured borders. The coyotes, as they call them, the human traffickers, the human smugglers, bringing people over the border are often extorting them. You might describe what is happening to them as being sort of like indentured servitude. These people are being forced to do labor. They're being blackmailed. Their family members are being threatened back home. Little girls coming over the border without parents, coming over the border with somebody that is not their parental guardian, are traveling with a morning after pill. And the morning after pill is there just in case the person their parents hired to bring them into the country decides he's feeling a little amorous. And I know there's really no better way to explain that. It's disturbing. It's really very disgusting. I am told that right now, the money that cartels are making off of smuggling humans into the country it rivals the money that they're making off drugs. Sometimes it's more money. Sitting in front of me right now, Mark Krikorian, Executive Director of Center for Immigration Studies. Human smuggling is $1 billion business, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the interesting thing is the cartels, the drug cartels, don't usually do the smuggling, but what they do is they kind of subcontract it out or they take a toll from the smugglers. And Jason Jones, who's an analyst on the border issues, former DPS officer, he has said that some of these cartels do, in fact, make more money off of the take from smuggling people than they do from smuggling drugs. And it's a way safer thing because, if you get caught or whatever, it's not nearly the same consequences for being involved in drugs. And so this is a land office business, and it's all possible because of President Biden's policies. There are always going to be some people smuggled across the border. There's no question. You can never stop it. But we're inviting it. And so people are taking us up on our invitation, and they're making money hand over fist.
Something that is very chilling to me, something that really gave me the creeps the first time I heard this from a law enforcement official, is that part of the reason why the cartels like human smuggling more than drug smuggling, I mean, not all, I'm speaking in broad generalities here. One of the things that makes it appealing to them is the fact that you could sell a kilo of cocaine once. You could sell a pound of marijuana once. You could sell fentanyl, one time. You could sell a little girl over and over again. And here in Houston, which I'm told is a hub for human trafficking, this is supposedly the human trafficking capital of North America, according to some experts. Maybe you could confirm that. This sort of thing with little girls happens all the time.
Little boys, too, I'm afraid. Absolutely. In fact, University of Houston has a annual conference on human trafficking, and we co-sponsor it with them. And there's another one coming up, I think, in December. And that point about selling, a person multiple times a night, that was actually also quoted in that movie, Sound of Freedom,
right?
Making the same point, which was based on an actual ICE, officer who left the government to sort of work against trafficking on his own. So yeah, this is a serious problem. And what some of the anti-borders groups will say is, well, this is all because we're so tough on the border. People have no choice but to do this. Well, first of all, that's an argument for literally unlimited immigration. And so if that's what you want, just come out and say it.
Why even have a country?
Exactly. But the fact is that tough, consistent, predictable enforcement is what persuades people not to take these risks because it costs a lot of money, it's very risky, and the only reason people are going to do it is if the odds of getting away with it, the odds of benefiting from it are high enough to warrant that. You make it less likely that they will succeed, and fewer people will put themselves in this kind of danger and take on these kind of risks and expense.
So what I find so remarkable about that is you just mentioned the University of Houston. Not exactly an institution filled with right-wing ideologues. But they get that this is a problem. People in academia know that this is happening. People in left-leaning, progressive, so-called progressive human rights groups know this is happening. I'm a Catholic. And you would think, with our religious beliefs being what they are, that most Catholics would be conservatives. They're not. Most Catholics are Democrats. In fact, it's a lot of the Catholic charities that are helping some of these people get over the border and providing them with assistance and services. Don't they see what's happened? Don't they see the exploitation of children, the smuggling of drugs, the murder? I mean, right in front of me, I have so many of these articles, we don't even have time to get to them. Another killing field discovered in cartel-controlled border city in Mexico. Texas guardman shot across border due to cartel gunmen assaulting migrants. Here's a report. ISIS-connected contractors smuggled Uzbekistan migrants across the border into the U.S. Mexico investigating if cross-border shooting was connected to assault, according to the Mexican president. I would assume leftist groups that are involved in what's going on down there see this. Why do they form a different conclusion about how to deal with it than you and I do, Mark?
Because, and look, most people think what they're doing is the right thing to do. In other words, most people aren't cynical. They're not liars. They actually believe that the things that they advocate for are the right things to do. I think the problem with much of the left, and you see some of this on the libertarian right, you know, sort of the kookier libertarians, is that they don't believe that the American people have a right to enforce the border, that it's just wrong to do so, and so we have to look elsewhere for solutions. They don't think this is good. I mean, these people aren't monsters. They obviously understand this exploitation and stuff is terrible. They just don't think that the only solution, which is to say consistent, strong enforcement, they don't think that's legitimate. It's immoral to do it. It's like Jim Crow. And so they're saying, look, we have to look elsewhere to try to solve this problem.
As a minarchist, as somebody that identifies as a liberty Republican and a Ron Paul Republican, and I have for a long time, I feel like the people you're describing who call themselves libertarians are actually just anarchists that have hijacked and co-opted the Libertarian Party. Because I don't feel like there's nothing unliberty-minded about having immigration laws. There's not putting up a border barrier, for example. There's building infrastructure. That's not the same thing as authoritarianism. But, you know, to your point, like those people call themselves libertarians.
Yeah, no, I mean, and now again, maybe this is sort of a Washington, D.C., Los Angeles libertarianism. There's a think tank called the Cato Institute and a magazine called Reason.
Yes.
But I mean, they are libertarianism as far as national policy debate goes. And they consider the freedom of movement to go anywhere you want from any country to any other country a fundamental human right, and therefore any obstruction, any limit on immigration of any kind is immoral. And they share that belief with much of the left now.
Okay, so is there something that's liberty-minded about empowering criminals to exploit migrants and force them into indentured servitude, force them into sex slavery, force them to go do labor somewhere in a factory in some, you know, chicken processing plant in South Mississippi? That seems very unlibertarian to me, yet people that are libertarians are advocating for a system that would cause that to happen.
Yeah, they are, because what they're saying is the answer to that is not enforcement of immigration laws. They're saying, well, this is just a law enforcement problem, and everybody in the world should be allowed to move here, and then we'll just make sure that they conduct themselves in a, you know, orderly fashion, which is it's utopian fantasy. This is the kind of thing that you come up with in a sophomore year dormitory debate at midnight when you've had too much to drink.
No, that's it. Right, exactly. Because liberals will make this argument. They're like, oh, if you're a libertarian, well, look at Somalia, look at Ethiopia. They don't have a lot of rules there. A system that empowers criminals to go out and exploit people is not liberty. That's the opposite. That's just a different kind of oppression. That's oppression without a lawyer writing policy for it.
Yeah, I've got people you should talk to about that, because like I said, the Cato Institute is they have, their people are the voice of libertarianism on immigration. And what I've found is that people who call themselves libertarians in the rest of the country, normal people, patriotic Americans, what I get from them is that they're conservatives but aren't interested in like social issues. In other words, that's why they call themselves libertarians.
100%.
That's not what libertarianism in Washington, D.C. that's part of the debate is about. It's a very different thing.
Yeah, and of course, it's a broad philosophy, right? It's like I'm into Milton Friedman
Right.
and Mises economics, and I think that inflation is caused by the government printing too much money. That doesn't mean I'm for open borders.
Yep.
That's insanity.
It shouldn't, anyway.
My guest right now, if you're just turning on the radio, is the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies. That is Mark Krikorian. Mark, you guys do great work.
Thank you.
And if people want to learn more about what you do, where do they go?
We're online at cis.org. It's an easy enough link. I got it in 1995 before people were rushing to the internet. cis.org. And we're on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I don't know.
Me too. The platform formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Sears Tower. You may spell it WILLS, but it's still the Sears Tower in Chicago.
That's what I think.
Yeah. So Twitter, I'm on Twitter at Mark S as in Stephen Krikorian, if you have a taste for snark and sarcasm.
Absolutely. I am following you right now I don't know why we don't already follow each other, and we should. You were described as a chief nativist by the Cato Institute. That is, and then tonight you guys have an invitation-only event. Now, if somebody shows up, it says they're an asylum seeker, you have to let them in.
Well, maybe not. Not for us, no.
Hey, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, brother.
Thank you.
We're not passive-aggressive. Like some people we know, this is Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness.